Manga. Some are good, some are bad, but only one can be classified as the greatest of all time, and that manga is undoubtedly Usogui. Throughout every genre in fiction, none have managed to intrigue me as much as those that involve the main character having to outsmart his competitors in such a way that gives more thrill and excitement than any traditional battle manga out there. In shows such as Squid Game, Alice in Borderland, and even JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, you see the main character think outside the box and problem solve to win. Just the showing of someone defeating another just based off strategy and thinking alone is spectacular. They all pale in comparison to how amazingly Usogui defines good writing in manga. Usogui is a seinen psychological warfare and fighting manga created in 2006 by a man named Toshio Sako, a man that was so devoted to his work he barely took a week off from serialization. And throughout the constant stress of making a chapter every week, he manages to put multiple pages of astonishing artwork in almost every chapter. The manga is about a man named Madarame Baku, or you can call him by his nickname Usogui, who pretty much wants to become the leader of this gambling organization. And you see him through every step of his journey and every gamble he takes achieving his goal. And no, it's not like regular gambling like poker or blackjack. It's very unique games. They literally play Battleship for an arc. But nevertheless, these gambles challenge not just Baku, but the reader themselves to try and think of the best way to complete these puzzles and to try to understand how the characters strategize their every move. These games are absolutely amazing and intense to read. Every single step of each arc is amazing to read, and you feel like you're literally getting smarter while reading the story. And these games aren't the only hype part in the manga. There's also a lot of physical fights that are amazingly choreographed. These fights get intense, and the two best fights in the manga sit at the top of the list of fights I've ever seen. And one scene in particular is literally the most hype I've ever been able to get while reading a manga. And the author does this throughout the entire story, which is truly spectacular for him to be able to keep this hype for the entire series. Just an amazing story would be good, but when the story also has the best art you have ever seen, it becomes an amazing mix of what truly makes something great. Usogui manages to encapsulate the best storytelling, characters, themes, arcs, thrill, development, and foreshadowing ever seen in fiction. I'm honestly astonished at how brilliant the mangaka has to be to create a story with foreshadowing 500 chapters in advance. Now don't get me wrong, 500 chapters may seem like a lot, but when you're reading it, you get so engaged in the story, you lose track of chapter count. All the way back in chapter 1, you see how incredibly mediocre his art is, but you clearly see he has dedication whenever he would draw an entire page. This dedication of the artist persists throughout the entire story, making it truly the most beautiful manga, rivaling artworks such as Berserk and Vagabond. But what does art even mean if the story is mediocre? That's where Usogui truly shines in its amazing writing. This manga, from chapter 1 all the way to the end, manages to get the reader on the edge of their seat through every single mind game and mental gymnastic that Usogui and Kaji deal with. And yes, the story doesn't just solely focus on Baku, but it also focuses on the deuteragonist Kaji. In my opinion, Kaji could even be considered a better character than Baku. He's more relatable and makes much more mistakes than Baku, but what makes his character great is the development from him in the beginning of the story to the end, where he is able to problem solve sometimes even faster than Usogui. He had a clear goal to try and become like Baku, and you see him embody what the reader also tries to achieve while reading the story. There are only a handful of stories that make you want to aspire to be exactly like a character, and in my opinion, that's where stories can truly shine, no matter how unrealistic it might be to become like someone who doesn't exist. But getting more into the other characters, this manga probably has one of, if not the most stacked cast of characters in any piece of media, rivaling even One Piece while having nearly half the chapters. Most of the characters have some sort of reason or motive that the reader is made aware of somehow. Nearly every single character in this manga gets a backstory or snippet about their past besides Usogui. It's only at the end where you find out a little more about his past that puts an entire twist on what his goal really meant the entire time. I believe Baku is a truly beautiful character that also manages to be the best manipulator in all of any manga history. I don't care what you say, he is the smartest. Not Johan, not Light, Ayana Kochi, definitely not Aizen. Baku literally lost Russian roulette and still left with his life unharmed. Usogui is quite possibly the smartest and most cunning character ever written. The only person who comes close to beating him is the antagonist of the story, Kiruma Soichi. Usogui also isn't evil. He is both a good and a bad guy, but the good outshines all the bad he does in the name of justice. He is probably who I wish I could be like the most, even though I don't think a single person on this planet is as smart as him. Even though he is a manipulator, he never manipulates or lies to his friends. That's why you can see him enjoying life with his friends, unlike nearly every single other manipulator in any manga who have sad and pessimistic lives. He is probably one of the only manipulators that I see is moral to aspire and to try and be like them. A genuine, good person. But I can't glaze for the whole video, so I'm gonna move on. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The art in Usogui is the best I've ever seen in manga. The only problem with having such beautiful art is that there could possibly never be a faithful anime adaptation. But anime doesn't make the manga better. Look at Demon Slayer, a beautiful looking anime, but mediocre art and story in the manga. There actually have been 2 adaptations of Usogui, both of them being fairly bad. I was actually able to find the OVA on YouTube, but I can't read Japanese, so I couldn't really understand that. Also, I'm not going to be watching the live action. I know. Didn't you just make a video on live actions? I know, but this one's shit, so I'm not going to watch it. The OVA fails in parts where the manga shines. Mainly the exaggerated art that looks terrible with the poor animation. But just because it failed once doesn't mean it would fail again. I fully believe if the manga could gain a larger popularity, it could be an actual anime similar to JoJo and Dorohedoro, and that's what I truly hope for. But hope can only go so far, especially with how long the manga really is. With the manga's ending, there's a high chance of a sequel series being made, but the ending was actually phenomenal, an ending where the reader doesn't feel hollow inside after finishing it, but happy and hopeful for more. And if the sequel never comes out, man, I'd even be fine with that. I swear to God, this manga changed my life, and it could definitely change yours too. Nothing I can say in this video will do this manga justice, so please, just consider reading it.
We'll go to a break, we'll go to a break, we'll go to a break, we'll go to a break. As it come up, as it come up, as it come up, as it come up.